Okay, hi there. Now let's go on to our next topic in JavaScript, which is conditional statements and looping statements. Now, uh, JavaScript is almost similar to Java in using conditional and looping statements, but we're going to see what are those differences that make Java and JavaScript a little different. Let's start with conditional statements. Now, conditional statements are those statements which allow you to execute blocks of code selectively based on a given condition. Uh, the first conditional statement that is supported by JavaScript is the if-else statement. Now, if-else statements, as its name suggests, allows you to execute a block of code if a particular condition is satisfied and if not, the other block of code. Now, the syntax for this statement is something like this. You start with an if statement, and within the parentheses you write the condition, and then the block of code that needs to be executed is written within these flower brackets. And then if you want the else condition, so this is also okay. If you just want the if, this also works. But if you want another condition, that if this is not satisfied, you want to execute another block of code, that would be your else statement, and this will be over here. Similar to this, you can also nest if and else conditions. For example, if this condition is satisfied, then you execute this block of code over here. Let's call this block of code, let's say block A. And if else, you want to execute this block of code, but again you have multiple conditions, so you can also put another condition over here with a nested if statement, which would say if I have another condition over here, and if this condition is satisfied, I'm going to execute another block of code, which is block B. And similarly, I can put again an else statement and this way, and it can actually go on and on over here. So you can put as many nested if and else conditions within these as possible. So let's take a case and see how we can do that. Now, we all know that we have GPAs in our courses, so let's create a variable called GPA and then assign it some value based upon what we want to do. Let's say I have 3.41 as the GPA. It's the initial value of GPA, as we saw from the previous screencast. Let's say I'm going to use an if condition and say that if the GPA is greater than equal to 3, or let's say 4.5 true, then I'll open my block of code that I want to say, and I want to set a variable status equal to, let's say, excellent standing. Okay, and then I'm going to close that. Now see, I used a variable which I didn't declare, so I have to declare it. Let's say status at the beginning, and then finally I'm going to just display that variable using the right function and say status. This way I will know what's going on. So over here, if I save this and I'm just going to refresh my page, you will see nothing, because actually my value is 3.41 and my condition is not satisfied, so it doesn't execute anything and the status is empty. So let's say, for example, let me define this as null in the beginning. So if nothing is defined, it should show me null. So if I refresh this, you will see that it's null. That means none of the given condition is satisfied, so no block of code is executed. So if you go back and see over here, how do we write a condition? It's very simple. A condition, you have to mention a variable and a value which it should be compared to. And this thing that is connecting these two literals is a comparison operator. Now, there are different comparison operators supported by JavaScript, similar to Java, which is greater than, equal to, less than, equal to, greater than, less than, and equal to. Now, if you want to say equal to, you cannot say a single equal, because single equal over here means assignment, as we were using over here. Now, if you want to use equal for comparison, you have to use equal twice. This means this is for comparison. Now in this case the condition becomes if the GPA is exactly equal to 4.5. Okay, so comparison is double equal and assignment operator becomes a single equal sign. So let's go back to our original one. So if it's greater than equal to 4.5. Now let's say if it's not greater than equal to 4.5, I want to say it's like normal standing or regular standing. In that case I have an else condition now. In that case, let's start with an else condition. In that block I'm going to set the value of status this time equal to regular standing. Okay, this way that if this is not true, this block of code will be executed instead of displaying null as we did before. So I'm going to just go back again to my browser and refresh it. You'll see that it's regular standing, and in this case if I just change this a little bit to 4.81, which is now greater than 4.5, I should be getting excellent standing. Okay, so this is a simple representation of what we are doing. Now sometimes we also want this conditional expression is actually known as a simple condition expression or a simple condition, because it just uses a single literal for it uses a single comparison criteria. Now, suppose we want to have multiple condition criteria. Let's say in this I'm going to nest another if statement. Suppose that if your GPA lies between 4 and 4.5, in between 4 and 4.5, then you have a good standing. Instead of excellent, you have a good standing. So I'm just going to put over here if GPA is greater than equal to 4.0. Now I want it to between 4 and 4.5. So in this case I'm going to use something called as a logical operator. I'll tell you more about that in a little while. Let's say if it's GPA and then if it's less than 4.5. Okay, and if this is true, I will execute a block of code where I want to put status equal to, let's say, good standing. Okay, now to close this block of code, and this should do it. So if this is not satisfied, else I'm going to just go ahead and put the status of regular standing, which I already did that earlier. Okay, in this case if the GPA is between 4 and 4.5, I'm going to have a good standing. Okay, I'm going to change this over here to 4.41, and let's see what happens. It goes back to good standing. So this, you can put as many if and else statements within these for cascading to check multiple conditions at the same time. Now if one is not satisfied, it will go to the next one until it finds one that is satisfied, and then it will execute that block of code, and then it will exit immediately to the end of this loop over here. Now this condition that I put over here, this expression is actually called as a complex condition. A complex condition because it involves more than one conditional expressions. This is one conditional expression, and then this is another conditional expression. Although they are using the same variable, you can also use different variables. It doesn't matter. The only thing is they have more than one condition statements. Now whenever you have more than one condition statements, you want to combine them, and this combination is actually done by using these operators, which are called logical operators. Now there are 3 logical operators supported by JavaScript or even Java in this case, which is and means these both should be true to go inside. If either one of them is false, then it will not go inside. So and is used when we want both the condition to be okay. So if both of them are true, then it will go inside. If either one of them is false or both of them are false, it will not go inside. Another similar logical operator is an opposite of this operator is the OR operator. This is OR. OR means either this or both can be true. So if either one of them is true and or both of them are true, it will go inside. So if it will be false, it will not go inside only if and only if both of them are false. So this is OR. Another one is a unary operator. This is binary. Binary means it can take more than one expressions. It can join more than one expressions. But in a unary operator, you can actually take only one of them. So for example, if I say that my GPA is not greater than 4.0, then I want to do something. So let's say let me just put another condition over here. Let's go back over here. Else I'm going to go again and put that if my GPA is let's say equal to 4.0. So if I want to say that if my GPA is not equal to 4.0, then I am a regular standing. So in that case, I'll just put a unary logical operator, which is this exclamation point. Okay, we can put the remaining condition inside the parenthesis. So if this is not equal to, so this is exactly saying something like this. You can say not equal to. If you don't want to put it this way, you can actually use not equal to. But not is usually supported when you are using like Boolean operators, true and false. So if it's true and you don't want to be true, you can just say not GPA, something like that. Okay, and in this case, it will only execute when the GPA is not equal to 4.0. Okay, so that's how we need to. These are the Boolean or you can say logical operators that we have. Now let's go on to our next operation. This one was using if and else statement. As I told you, you can nest as many as possible if and else blocks within these to make a statement. Another one is a switch statement. So we have two conditional statements supported by JavaScript. One is an if and else statement, and the other one is a switch statement. A switch statement allows you to do an if and else on multiple conditions at the same time. But remember, these conditions, these conditions over here, we can use complex conditions or comparison operators which are greater than or less than or equal to. But whenever we are using a switch statement, it should be the comparison operator that we can use only is equal to. Okay, let me tell you how. Let's say that we are in a supermarket and we want to buy something, and based upon the item you buy, the price of the item is displayed, right? Let's say I have where I'm going to say item is equals to oranges. Okay, since it's a string, I need to put that in quotations. Okay, now let's say I want to say what is the price. Whatever item I have, the price will be the price should be given to me. Let me just remove this over here and put it before that so that I didn't get confused with this. Let's say I want to use the switch statement in this case. So I have many items, so the correct price should be displayed. So I have switch, which inside the switch statement I have to put the expression on which I have to switch on to. So over here I am using item, so the value of the item will decide which price I want to take. So I'll just put item over here, and inside the switch statement I have to put cases. Okay, cases. Now case will be after followed by case is a keyword, and after followed by the case I have to put the value that I want to switch that to. So for example, let's say I have many items in my store. Let's say the first one is apple. I put a colon, and then I write the block of code that I want to execute if it's an apple. So say if this is an apple, I want to set the value of the price equal to, let's say 10. Okay, and you have to use another statement which is called break. Now break is used in case once you find an operator. I'll let you know what break is in a little while. Okay, let's say another case is oranges, as I just told you about. Let's say orange. Okay, I don't want to say oranges, let's say orange. Say if it's an orange, the price would be equal to 8. Okay, I have to use a break again, and then case, let's say grape, and I'm going to put the price equal to 15, and I'm going to put a break again, and then I'm going to close this. Now what happened is I'm going to use document.write to actually display the price at the end. Okay, and I can see that I used price and I didn't declare it, so I want to do that. Where price, let's say I'm going to put it to equal to 0 as my initial value, and again I'm going to display the value of the price over here. Okay, now what happens in a switch statement is, for example, first I have a variable on which I want to switch to. It has a value that it has to use, and then I'm going to use switch item, and inside that I have multiple cases that I have. So if either one, so it's an if and else condition again over here. See, if I just remove switch and this, it will be if item is equals to apple, then price equal to 10. Else if item equal to orange, the price equal to 8. Else if item equal to grape, price equal to 15. So instead of writing all these things, like whenever it's equal to different items, I want to just make it smaller so you can use the switch statement. So switch statement is just a simple replacement for an if and else statement in case of assignment comparison. So over here you see I am using switch item and then if each case. Now the break is used to tell the system that whenever you find a match, execute this block of code. You can add multiple lines, it's just not just one line, you can add more lines over here. So if this block of code is executed, then break, I mean that means go to the end. That means I found a match, I don't want to execute the remaining part of my code, and it will go back and go to the end, and then it will execute from here. So that's the end part of it. So this is how a switch statement works. Now the only difference between a switch statement in Java and a switch statement in JavaScript is that Java doesn't support switching on strings, whereas in the case of JavaScript you can use strings within this. So you can use switch on strings. In Java you cannot use this. You can only use a number. So it can be only case 1, case 2, case 3, case 5, or any number that you can use. But in JavaScript you can actually switch on a string, which means it's a little more powerful than Java. So this is how it does it. There's one more case that is given. So for example, if none of them is executed, you can have something like default. Default is executed whenever none of these are applicable. So you can say if none of them is applicable, let's set the price equal to 1. Okay, and you can use a breakout done because it's the last statement, so you may not need it. So but to be consistent you can use it, but it doesn't you don't need to use it there. So for example, if I say I'm using, let's say a raspberry, which is not mentioned over here, the price is 1. Okay, just to be clear on that. So if you see that, this is the one that we are getting over here. If you remember that, if we don't want that, we can use a break statement as we did in the previous screencast. We can just go ahead and say document.write, and I'm going to use an HTML break statement as we did earlier to make sure it's on the second line. Okay, so if I just go back and then put apple over here, okay, let's see what happened over there. Okay, I missed a quotation. I'm going to go back, and this time it's apple, so it will be 10. Or if the next thing it was a grape, it will be 15. So this is how it works. This is how the switch statement works. I hope that was easy. It's just a simple explanation of the conditional statement supported by JavaScript, which is just a revision of what you may have already known from other programming languages. Now let's go on to the next statement, which is looping statements. Looping statements allow you to repeat a block of code as many times as you mention. Now JavaScript supports the same types of looping statements provided by Java. Let's start with the first statement, which is the for loop statement. Now, all of these are going to do the same thing with a different syntax of writing that. Now, before we start, remember that in any looping statement, you need to have three things: an initial variable, a looping variable, okay, and you have to assign an initial value to that. That's the starting point of your loop. It will decide how many times you need to loop, how many times you need to repeat the block of code. After that, the second one is a condition that specifies when you need to stop the loop, okay. And the third one, and the third item that you need to put is the increment, that how you want to modify your looping variable after the end of each loop. So there has to be three things that you need to be concerned about: initial value, condition, and increment or update. Don't say increment, because increment always means only increasing, whereas you can also decrease the value. So in this case I'm going to say update. So initial value, condition, and update. Now the way we use these in a looping statement decides which one do we want to use. In a for loop, we have to use all these in the beginning part of your loop. So for example, if I'm going to say use a for loop, I'll say for. Inside this, first I have to decide the initial value. So I want to declare the variable var I, which is my looping variable, and the initial value to be equal to 0. That's my initial value. Then I use a semicolon to separate all these values, which is the syntax of a for loop. So var I equal to 0. The next one is a condition. The condition would be, let's say I want to repeat this loop for 10 times. So I have to say I is less than 10. So it will start from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and it will stop at 9 because I said my condition should be less than 10. So if it's less than equal to 10, then it will go to 10. So if it's less than 10, it will just repeat it until 9 and then stop. And then I'm going to use I++. This is my update. So I want to increment I by 1 every time. Okay, and then I'm going to say document dot write over here, and let me just put a break, and just put a break over here so that break, and then I want to display the value of I each time I go inside. Okay, I'm going to save this and let's see what happens. Pretty obvious. We start from 0 and I stop at 9, as I told you. So this is how I will loop. Now suppose I want to increment it by 2. Okay, so I can just say I plus 2 and save it. This time I'm not incrementing it by 1, I'm incrementing it by, okay, this doesn't work. Okay, let's say I want to increment it by decrement it. Okay, and in this case, because 9 means it will not go until that point. Let's say I want to decrement it. I want to start from 10. I want to stop at 0. Okay, so let's start this. Yeah, my code got stuck. Let me start that again. Oops. That's one of the annoying features of brackets, that to connect the browser takes some amount of time, just like rendering. It's a really annoying feature, so it needs to be fixed. Okay, so we made a mistake over here. Where I equal to 10, I is less than, until I is less than 0. Okay, you know what happened. Let's say I minus minus. I say I should say I is greater than 0. Yeah. Okay, so it starts from 10 and it will go until 1, and when it reaches as 1 and it goes to this. Okay, so this is how we can loop in the statement. Now we have more looping statements. Let's say the other looping statement is a while loop statement. Now all looping statements do the same thing but with a different syntax. Now in a while loop, what we do is inside the while we put the condition first. Now we put the condition. So here, see, the condition is I is greater than 0. So that should be here. I is greater than 0. Okay. Now the other part, so the initial is before starting the while loop. So I have to say I equal to 10. I'm not going to, I have to declare it again where I equal to 10, and then I'll say while I is greater than 0, and then I want to display my, so I just want to copy this. I just want to copy that complete part over here, and then the update actually goes inside the loop at the end. So at the end or anywhere you want it, as you like it. So if I say I minus minus, okay, so this is how we need to do it. So I minus minus, and then I can just go ahead and then refresh this. You can see the same thing repeating. So looping statement, it does the same thing but with a different syntax. In this case, I have all the three conditions that I need: the initial value, the condition, and the update within the same statement as the for. Or in case of another, the while loop, I have to use initial first, and then within the while loop I can just use the condition, and then I can use the update inside the while loop. Okay, I just realized what I was doing as a mistake is whenever you want to increment it by 2, you just don't say I plus 2. You have to do something like this. For example, if I say I equal to 0, I is less than 10, and if you want to increment it by 2, I'll have to say I plus equal to 2 in this case. So if I just put it this way, let me just say, if I just refresh this, you will see that it increments it by 2 each time. So it's a 2, 4, 6, 8, and that's it. That's the execution of my first loop. Okay, so this is the shortcut that we use. We cannot just say I plus 2, which doesn't make any sense, because this is the shortcut operator for saying I equal to I plus 2. Okay, so this is how we usually need to do that. Now there is one more looping statement available for us, which is called the do while loop. Now the do while loop and the while loop has only one thing that makes them different. Let's say I'm going to put it this way. In a do while loop, you do put the, I don't need to use the where now because I have already declared I over here. So let's say I equal to 0. Now I'm going to say while, not do while loop, so I'm going to say do over here, and inside that I don't have anything. It just starts it, and then I'm going to copy whatever I just did over here. Okay, I'm going to say plus plus because I'm starting from 0, and then I need to put over here, close the bracket, and then I need to put a while loop over here, which says a condition over here that says that I'm going to start my do over here, and then at the end I'm going to do the condition. So I have this as my initial. This is my update, this is my condition initial, and the condition is over here, which is I is less than 10 in this case. Okay, and then I have to put a semicolon. So let's save this and then see what happens in our loop. Say we also again got from 0 to 9. Now, the difference that we want to see between a while and a do-while loop over here is that a do-while loop executes at least once before checking the condition. So even if the condition is false, it will at least execute it once. Let me show it to you. Let's say I say I equal to 10 in the beginning, right? So it should not, actually this should not run, because I want always the value of I to be less than 10 to repeat this when the value of I is equal to 10. But it will at least run at once. So you'll get the output as 10 at least once. Okay, let's see that. I'm going to see, refresh this. You'll see that I at least get 10 once. So it is executing at least once. So that means that even if the condition is false, it will execute once, because it differs checking the condition till the end. So if the condition is the beginning, it will check it in the beginning and it will not go inside. So suppose, let's say if I put I equal to 10 and then I use the same condition over here. So initially I'm going to put I equal to 10 over here, and if I use the same condition, I is less than 10, it will not even execute. We'll see that now. Say refresh this. See, it didn't even execute. The previous one, it didn't even execute now, because the condition is checked in the beginning. Over here, because these two are exactly the same, instead of the I minus minus, but it doesn't matter because it's not even executing there. So this one checks the condition at the end. Okay, so these are the condition and looping statements available for us in JavaScript. Let me just go over it one more time as a review. So we have an if and else statement. The if and else statement allows you to check conditions and then executes a block of code conditionally. Now conditions can be simple, that means you have only one expression, and for using a conditional statement you have to use a conditional operator or a comparison operator. A comparison operator allows you to check the comparison between two literals, with one can be a variable and the other has to be a value of that variable, and you can use the comparison operator to do that. You can also use strings, or you can also use Boolean operators over here. It doesn't matter. So whereas in case of a complex condition, we can compare more than one conditional expressions, but they have to be combined with a logical operator, and this logical operator can be and or not, but not as a unary one. And or are binary operators. Now binary means they can apply on two conditional expressions. Or here, and means both of them needs to be true so that this block of code will be executed. But if I use an or statement, that means either one of them can be true or both of them can be true. So it's the block of code is executed if both of them are true and or either one of them true. But if both of them are false, then the block of code is not executed. The other statement that we saw was the switch statement. The switch statement is also like a if statement, but with an equal comparison, and it can be used. The difference between a switch statement in Java and JavaScript is that the switching item that I'm going to use, the switching variable that I can use, can have a string value or a text value. In Java is not allowed. We can only have numeral values, that is Boolean or integers. Not say Boolean, I'll say floating point variables, floating point values. After that, we saw some looping statements. A looping statement, the three most important part of looping statements are the initial value, the condition, and the update. The way these three are mentioned in makes the difference between the syntax of various loop statements that we have. In a for loop statement, all of them are specified within the brackets and the beginning of the loop itself, whereas in a while loop we have to do that individually, that is define individual first, the initial value of a variable, a looping variable first, and then we have the condition inside the while loop, and then we can put the block of statement and then the update value inside it. Whereas in case of a do while loop, we follow the same thing, but the condition is deferred until the end. So that means this loop is executed at least once, even when the condition is not satisfied. So these are the things that we have in JavaScript with respect to conditionals and looping statements.